Secretary Castro, I am struck by the fact that you've seen polling and you've seen what I would call sort of alarmist headlines about the extent to which some of what was once considered the Obama coalition, young people, people of color, unmarried women, that their level of support for the president isn't where the president and Democrats would want it to be. I think those numbers are challenging in a number of ways, including the fact that those Obama coalition numbers were extraordinarily high. They might have been a high watermark. But if the desire on the part of the Biden campaign and Democrats is to close that gap, they don't have a better messenger than Kamala Harris.
I think that's right, Alicia. I mean, let's begin with the fact that in Kamala Harris, you have somebody who is very talented, dynamic, energetic. I have seen that up close during the 2020 campaign. She connects, as the campaign said, with this whole group of voters, whether it's young people, people of color, women, that Joe Biden right now, at least, is lagging with. And so she complements Joe Biden very, very well in 2024, maybe even better than in 2020. And so the campaign is doing the smart thing to get her out there front and center. And she has been on the road a lot lately, delivering an effective message, whether it's, as we saw in that clip, on voting rights or on reproductive freedom, which will probably continue to be the issue that helps power Democrats to victory in November of 2024. So she's going to be this indispensable part of the 2024 campaign.
Let's pick up on what you just said about reproductive freedoms, because I think after the midterms, seeing the extent to which that did motivate voters, there were a lot of pundits and analysts who said, well, that's great for the midterms, but that fire is not going to stay there going into 2024. And I think what we've seen is that actually has not proven true, that the more Americans live with the consequences of the overturn of Roe versus Wade, the more real it becomes to them in their life, and the more it becomes part of this broader sense of Republicans being simply too extreme to govern. Some of what the Biden campaign is watching now has them looking at states like North Carolina, maybe even Ohio, and actually having an expanded electoral map for victory. I wonder if you think that is pie in the sky optimism, or if you think there's actually the possibility that there are states that are now in play that weren't even a few months ago.
Well, what we saw the other day in Ohio with the proposed constitutional amendment, that makes me think that there is still a lot of power behind this issue, and it makes sense. I mean, we're talking about a fundamental freedom that had been in effect for 50 years, now stripped by this conservative Supreme Court, and Republicans are not listening to the people. They're not backing down on this. So, yeah, I think it can have the effect of opening up political opportunities, whether it's in a place like North Carolina or Ohio or other states, where 3 years ago we wouldn't have expected that. I also think that it powered Democrats to victory in the midterms in 2022, that was one of the most, if not the most important factors. I remember in the 2004 campaign that in a negative way, the Bush campaign had the question of marriage rights for the LGBTQ community put on the ballot in places like Ohio and other states because they thought that that would help them drive out their base. I can tell you anywhere where the question of reproductive freedom is on the ballot, any state where that's the case in November of 2024, I believe that's going to be a big help to Democrats.